Hello, everyone, and welcome to this introductory session where we discuss what we're calling the Thrive 1.0 initiative, a set of resources and community and events and support for Mormons who are transitioning in a faith crisis. So our mission is to support Mormons through faith transition. We're going to promote post-Mormon healing and growth, and we're going to facilitate healthy post-Mormon community. And we're going to be emphasizing the fact that this isn't to replace any of the amazing existing communities all throughout Mormonism, post-Mormonism. This is to support them and help grow local communities. So now that we've talked about our mission, we'll talk about kind of some of the specific offerings. The first thing that we hope to offer are resources. This can include online presentations, lots of content easily accessible everywhere, so that you don't have to attend a workshop or retreat or pay a bunch of money to get the support that you need. So that's the first thing, resources. The second thing we are doing and hope to continue doing are events. The next thing that we have are local support groups, and that's the main reason why we're creating this content today. These Thrive groups will meet monthly, and the purpose will be to sort of sit in a circle of 10 or 15 or 20 or 5 people who are in need of support. And hopefully we'll be able to provide these little 20-minute modules of content that allow, group members to watch a 20-minute session on parenting after Mormonism, or watch a 20-minute session on positive mental health after Mormonism, or dealing with depression or anxiety, or how to communicate with believing family and friends, or how to make your marriage stronger, or Word of Wisdom 2.0. Whatever the topic is, they'll be able to watch freely accessible content as a group in these little 20-minute modules, and then discussion questions will be made available so that these support groups can discuss the content that's provided, process it, and share and build community in a way that ultimately provides support for people in faith crisis that doesn't require a formal workshop or retreat with people flying in and people paying a lot of money. We want to do all we can to support people locally meeting each other's needs. We have some norms for these support groups that I'll just briefly go over. This needs to be people who are 18 or above. We can't have children or youth at these events right now because we don't want there to ever be any risk of abuse, and we don't right now have any infrastructure or facilities to ensure that there are background checks and all the things that we would want to make sure and have before any youth or children were ever put at risk. So these are adults-only events. Some of the norms are we ask that everyone speak and act kindly and respectfully. There feasibly will be mixed faith couples who might attend these events, people who are still believing in some way or other, all the way to people who don't believe anything or who are not affiliated with church at all. And so we need there to be some sort of group norm where everybody speaks and acts kindly and respectfully, given that there will be a spectrum of beliefs and church participation at these events. No illegal activities of any sort should ever be conducted at these events, and any illegal activities should be immediately and promptly reported to law officials. We can't have any illegal activities going on at these events. No abuse of any kind, no sexual abuse, no emotional abuse, no physical abuse, of course. We really want to encourage, if possible, the minimizing or avoidance of the discussion of things like politics or business opportunities or sales, because those topics can distract from the core purposes of these events and really be off-putting for people who are just coming to get support of their faith crisis. So we would love to discourage, again, discussion of politics and business opportunities and sales types of things. We want to discourage the evangelizing of beliefs. If you're still a Christian, these groups aren't the place to try and get people to come to your local Christian group or to try and persuade people to believe in God or not believe in God. If you're a healthy, secular atheist, you shouldn't be evangelizing atheism to the participants either. We shouldn't be trying to persuade people to stay in the church or leave the church. Evangelizing of any sort is just inappropriate for these sorts of events. Everyone should feel safe to believe exactly what they want to believe or not, to attend or not attend, to participate or not in whatever they want to believe or attend or not attend. And then finally, these groups are not in some way affiliates directly with any centralized organization. These are locally owned and run groups. We don't control them, and we don't want to be responsible for what happens in the local groups. Now, how that works out legally in the long run, we don't know, but that's our position right now. We're not in any way trying to give the impression that we have quality control or any sort of control over these events. We're just trying to help facilitate healing and growth at a local level. But each group is locally owned and managed. And of course, if there's something inappropriate that goes on, we want to know about it, and we'll promptly delist group leaders or even local communities that violate these group norms. And we'd love to seek your feedback and suggestions on these norms and this vision and this whole project over time. The role of the group leaders are to, number one, find a place to meet, whether it's in someone's home, some local meeting house or room, library, whatever it is, university setting. Group leaders find a place to meet. They pick a time and a date and again, a location for these events. And then they can act as sort of a focal point for the community. And we hope that they will lead and moderate these discussions in a way that respect the group norms that we've outlined. Again, some final disclaimers. This is a social experiment. These groups are autonomous. They're run by volunteers. The leads are not necessarily professionals, although I think it's a great marriage. And the final disclaimer is, do seek professional support if you need it. Don't look to these support groups as therapy groups. They're not therapy groups. And don't think of these groups as being a replacement for licensed therapists and or professional coaches who are available. You can always go to the Mormon Mental Health Association, which is a website, and find this directory of providers on local level that have been vetted by the organization who can provide professional support when you need it. We envision you doing storytelling. We would just simply have each person take 3 to 5 minutes to tell their faith crisis story or their journey in an abbreviated way. There are lots of good reasons why we have created and nurtured this tradition of storytelling. Some of the reasons include the following. Storytelling is cathartic. It helps you get out a lot of pent-up feeling and frustration and emotion. Storytelling is healing. As you hear yourself tell your stories, you construct your stories, you tell your story, and as you hear other people tell their stories, a lot of healing and processing can take place. It's also instructive. You can learn a lot from your own story and from other people's stories. So we believe in storytelling, and so that's why we do storytelling. Also, storytelling, we've heard this over and over and over again, storytelling helps people feel like they are not crazy and not alone. So when you hear other people tell their stories, you connect immediately and say, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy. I'm not bad. I'm not sick. I'm less lonely. And I can connect with other humans who are experiencing the same thing that I am. Also, storytelling helps people process their experiences. And finally, storytelling helps build community. And so as you are building these or strengthening these new or already existing communities, the storytelling experience, the storytelling event will help you forge friendships and communities, again, that can last for a very long time. So that's why we do storytelling. We have several ground rules for storytelling that include the following. Number one, first and foremost, is strict confidentiality. These storytelling events are never to be recorded, audio or video, or either, both, whatever. And never are you to reveal who's at these events. Just the attendance at these events should be held in confidence. There are many, many people who are going through a faith crisis who, because of job or familiar reasons, it can't be known that they're even attending these events, let alone what they share at these events. So please never reveal any information at these events that would ever identify anyone, either who they are, that they were at an event like this, or any details of what they share. And of course, it's impossible to regulate that. but we need everyone to commit to maintaining strict confidentiality. And anyone who violates these rules of confidentiality potentially should be subjected to being removed from these events and groups, because that's just the way these groups need to work. Of course, that will be locally enforced. Please use respectful language at these in your storytelling. That's super important. Again, believer, non-believer, church attendee, non-attendee, we should speak with respect about all shades of belief and all shades of church participation or non-participation. Now, that's very difficult because at the same time, we have a rule, which is that you need to be vulnerable and candid. We say in our workshops and retreats that vulnerability is the gasoline to the engine of intimacy, emotional intimacy, and ultimately community. So we want you to balance being respectful, but also being vulnerable and candid in your real experiences. And it's tough to make that balance, but we're asking everyone to make that balance. One really good tip is avoid offensive language like cult or pedophile or whatever really strong language that might unnecessarily alienate people in the room. If you can find or choose words that still get your very candid and vulnerable feelings across, but that don't unnecessarily alienate or offend people who might be in the room, that's nice. Now, having said all that, we also have a ground rule, which is be resilient, which means that you, as much as we're all going to try to be lay out these ground rules and be respectful, people are still going to say things that are probably hurtful or offensive, depending on where you are in your journey and in your sensitivity to these sorts of things. So if you hear something that's hurtful or offensive, we ask you to be resilient, which means don't leave, don't get up, don't be offended. Just try and put on the cloak of empathy and realize that people are in real pain, struggling with real issues, and sometimes they're going to say things that might be hurtful to you, but you are an adult, you are strong, you are resilient, you are capable, and you can endure a few people expressing things in a suboptimal way, because that's what it means to be an adult in the 21st century. So try to be resilient. Please respect the time limits. So if the group decides on a 3-minute or a 5-minute or a 10-minute limit to your storytelling, please don't be that guy or gal that does 10 or 15 minutes, makes everyone look at their clock and roll their eyes and have to leave the group early because you couldn't abide by the time limits. And it's very helpful when group leaders actually have a little watch or a little timer on their phone that dings after, the 3 or the 5 minutes so that everyone knows when they are to wrap up. So we'll do that. We'll model that today. If I can have somebody who has a little timer that can time for 5 minutes. So please respect the time limits. Pay attention to opportunities for connection, for similarities, for opportunities for connection within the group. Again, maybe 2 sets of parents have LGBT kids. Maybe two couples are in a mixed faith marriage. Maybe different couples are grandparents or young parents or whatever it is. Look for similarities that you can build friendships and community upon. That's a really important part of this storytelling. And then something that we love to do as sort of a tradition within our retreats and workshops is feel free to clap at the end of everyone's story. We think every story deserves celebration. So if you want to clap at the end of each person's story, we think that's a great way to celebrate and reward and positively reinforce their vulnerability and their sharing. So those are the ground rules for storytelling. And before we jump into it, we provided a sample of some of the questions or topics that can be addressed during your 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is. It's usually pretty good to share your name if you feel comfortable. It's pretty valuable to share where you live specifically so people who live close to you can know that someone close to them is around. If you want to, you can share what led to your faith crisis. I want to just say this can be a real rat hole because people can, as you know from Mormon stories, people can spend 10 hours talking about what led to their faith crisis, and we don't have 10 hours. So many of these stories are going to be very similar. A couple other things that you could talk about in your storytelling are what has been the hardest part about your faith transition. That's really useful because it lets people know your particular pain points or what you've struggled most with or what's been hardest. And a final thing you can talk about is what you're hoping to get out of the support group, why you're attending, what your needs are. And again, that can help alert group members to knowing what your needs are so that the group can figure out a way to provide you with support. Maybe it's casseroles, maybe it's just attending a wedding, sitting outside the temple grounds of a wedding that you're sitting outside of. Maybe it's providing support for your LGBTQ family members. Maybe you're in the midst of a divorce, or maybe someone's sick, or whatever it is. We hope that groups can rise up to support those in need. And just because we leave Orthodox Mormonism and church attendance doesn't mean we can't love and support each other in a community. So those are samples of the storytelling questions. A couple other things that you could talk about in your storytelling are what has been the hardest part about your faith transition. That's really useful because it lets people know your particular pain points or what you've struggled most with or what's been hardest. And a final thing you can talk about is what you're hoping to get out of the support group, why you're attending, what your needs are. And again, that can help alert group members to knowing what your needs are so that the group can figure out a way to provide you with support. Maybe it's casseroles, maybe it's just attending a wedding, sitting outside the temple grounds of a wedding that you're sitting outside of. Maybe it's providing support for your LGBTQ family members. Maybe you're in the midst of a divorce, or maybe someone's sick, or whatever it is. We hope that groups can rise up to support those in need. And